Movie buffs, welcome back to the Movie Bay. This is Day. In today's video, we're going to take a look at 20 good movies with 20 good shootout scenes. Now, every movie is not here with great shootout scenes. I can't cover them all. I did omit a few that would be considered crowd pleasers, but I got a lot of crowd pleasers here, and I got some that's not crowd pleasers. I wanted to mix it up a little bit to bring some different shootouts up, because we all got the top shootouts that we go to. I got a couple of those in here, but I actually got some shootouts that don't come up first when we discuss great shootouts. And we're going to start this list off with the Magnificent Seven, the shootout in the town where everybody was included. There was quite a few shootout scenes in this movie, but not the first shootout in the town. I think it was like the second one. Fantastic movie, a great remix. A great remake. I think the cast was spot on. Denzel Washington did a great job in this movie, and it had a couple of good shootouts, but I'm talking about the main shootout. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like the second shootout in the town. Next up, we have Django Unchained, the shootout in the mansion. The one where blood was just splattering everywhere. Just a fantastic shootout. Next up, we have Wanted. This movie had a lot of good shootouts, but I'm talking about the one where James McAvoy was running through that factory, getting it down. Next up, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the shootout in the house. The shootout in the house, you know the one I'm talking about. Yes, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This movie had about 3 good shootouts, but I'm talking about the one they had in their house. Crazy. The way they was lighting their own house up. We got The Rock. We're talking about the shootout scene when the U.S. Special Forces breached the prison by way of the sewer system that took them up into the bathroom. And Hummel and his troops had them from an elevated position. Next up, here's one I know you guys wasn't expecting. We got Belly. And the shootout scene I'm talking about is the scene at Ox's house. Ox's mansion when they came in to kill Ox, and he gave it to me. That was like Ox went out like the Black Tony Montana in that one. That was a good shootout scene. A little dark, but it was really good. Shoot 'em up. Clive Owen did a great job in this movie, and I'm not a huge Clive Owen fan, but I think the shootout in that factory when he was holding the baby, it was fun. To me, this was more of a fun shootout scene than anything else. Again, I'm not a huge Clive Owen fan, but this was a good movie and had a lot of good action. How can we not include Smoking Aces? The hotel shootout? Woo-wee. Woo-wee. Smoking Aces had some shootouts for your ass, but that one at the hotel, that was a banger for real. How can we forget the original RoboCop when he raided the drug factory? Man, that was a good shootout scene too. I loved it. Bad Boys 2, the same shootout scene we discussed in the best car chase scenes. That shootout was a banging shootout. Bad Boys 2 had, I think, 2 good shootouts, but the one we're talking about is the one where the chase scene started. They stopped and paused and started shooting. Then they resumed the chase scene. That was a good shootout. Next up, we got Death Sentence, the final fight between Kevin Bacon and the gang leader. And what made this shootout so good to me, it was very violent. Some shootout scenes, they don't really show a lot of blood and stuff like that. Some do, some don't. This was a really, really violent shootout scene. I mean, he had a double-barrel shotgun, and you can see him literally shoot limbs off, blowing legs off, blowing arms off, blowing guts out. It was crazy. A really, really good shootout scene. Unlike the shootout scene from Django, where they was just overdoing it with the blood, this one wasn't overly done. It was brutal, but it was more realistically brutal. You know what I mean? Great shootout. That final fight was a really good shootout. Next up, we got Ambulance. Had a good shootout when he was leaving the bank. There was about 2 good shootouts in here. There was another shootout scene, I do believe, when they was in gang territory. Actually, it was 3. It was another one when they was inside that apartment. So this has some good shootouts in it. You wouldn't think it, but it really did. Sicario, the border, right when he was heading to the border, that shootout scene on that roadway going to the border, That was a really good shootout scene. Definitely. Probably one of the best shootout movies ever made. One of the best, not the best. One of the best shootout movies ever made. Hard Boiled. I'm talking about the shootout at the factory. There was like the shootout at the factory. There was the shootout at the restaurant. There was the shootout at the hospital. Man, like I said before, this movie is straight up gun porn. Definitely. If you down for that shootout life, you got to check out Hard Boiled. And also, I want to say it's a follow-up to this. It's called Killer. I seen it. I don't have it. I seen it years ago. Killer had a lot of good shooting too. And somehow Killer is tied to this movie. I'm not sure if it's a sequel or not, but again, Hard Boiled. A lot of great shootouts in that movie. Now, here's one where I had a little trouble kind of figuring out how I wanted to go with this one. And it's basically the shootout at the OK Corral. And I wanted to decide, should I go with Tombstone's version of that shootout or Wyatt Earp's version of that shootout? Now, both Wyatt Earp and Tombstone are great movies. And to me, you can't go wrong with either one. But I think the shootout at the OK Corral was a little bit more intense in Wyatt Earp because I think the music was different. Kevin Costner was just more. I think that Wyatt Earp was just had a more serious, slower pace to it than Tombstone. Tombstone is a great movie. Wyatt Earp is a great movie. Like I said before, and here's why I sit on the Wyatt Earp and Tombstone debate again. If you didn't catch it the first couple of times I said it. I think Tombstone is the more entertaining movie of the two, but I think Wyatt Earp is the more accurate movie of the two. The more, I guess, the more cinematic experience. Yeah, and Tombstone is the more Hollywood experience. You know what I mean? So which one do I like better? Again, I'm going to have to go to Tombstone. I don't want to say I like Wyatt Earp better, but I do like Wyatt Earp's shootout at the OK Corral scene better than the Tombstone version of that shootout. But both movies are incredible. I urge you to own both. Again, Tombstone just got a little bit more, I think it's got a little bit more entertainment value to it. Now, if you don't care for that entertainment value, then Wyatt Earp is the better movie. It is. But as far as, the Hollywood experience, Tombstone is better. I'm sorry to, skate off on that. I wanted to explain why, because I've already said Tombstone was the better movie, in my opinion, several times, but here I am holding up Wyatt Earp is the better shootout scene. To me, the shootout is a little bit more intense in this movie because of the acting and just the tone and pace of the movie. Next up, we got the nightclub shootout in John Wick, the original John Wick. That was an intense shootout. I mean, man, that was a fantastic shootout right there. Next up, we got Leon the Professional, the apartment shootout scene near the end of the movie. Banging. And how could we not go with Scarface? We already know the shootout, the very last shootout in the movie. Fantastic. An absolute banger. Say hello to my little friend. Here's one that you probably didn't expect either. I like to throw these in every now and then. The Town. And what I mean, the Town, the garage shootout scene. Man, you got to check that one out. The garage shootout scene in this movie is crazy. And we're getting down to the good part. The original Matrix, the office building lobby. You know the lobby when they go in there, him and Trinity go in there and turn up. Last but not least, the number one shootout, Heat. And what makes Heat shootout the best, to me, it was the most realistic. The way they captured the sound. The sound for the shootout in this movie was not done in post-editing. They actually placed mics around the area, capturing live gunfire right there as it was being shot. The shooting effects was not added in post. It was edited, but it wasn't added in post. They actually placed mics around the set to capture the gunfire as it was really happening. The shootout scene in this is intense. It's incredible. And I'm going to go on record to say this is the best shootout in movie history. That's my opinion. There we go. So that's like 20, maybe 21, 22, something like that. But I'm going to call the video 20. Honorable mention real quick to the Hateful Eight. I just had it laying here. I was going to include it, but I didn't. But since it's laying on the table, The Hateful Eight, The Last Shootout, I thought it was humorous, funny, a lot of blood, a lot of unnecessary blood, just like the Django shootout scene, but it was all right. Honorable mention. So there you go, guys. That's my take on some of the best movie shootout scenes. There's a lot more shootout scenes out there. I mean, we didn't touch on none of the Terminator shootout scenes. We didn't touch on none of the Boondock Saints shootout scenes. We didn't touch on Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. It's so many good movies out there with great shooting scenes. But right now, these are the ones that I wanted to bring you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next.